To make this bracelet, you need 7.5 inches of gold curb chain, 36 inches of turquoise ribbon, 1/8 of an inch wide, 36 inches of cobalt blue ribbon, 1/8 of an inch wide. Then you need a gold anchor charm. This one is 3/4 of an inch, and it comes with a jump ring. You need 2 rhinestone charms, also comes with a jump ring, and these are all gold. Then you need a large lobster clasp with a jump ring. And finally, you need scissors. To get started, you want to take your cobalt ribbon and find the halfway point just by folding it in half, like this. We like to do this just by matching the ends up, because then you know where the halfway point is. And then we want to slide on our lobster clasp. And thankfully, our lobster clasp came with a jump ring attached to it. If yours doesn't come with the jump ring, you can just add the jump ring on to the lobster clasp before you start. And we're going to slide that up to the halfway point, like that. I'll double check that that's the center, just by putting the ends together. There we go. And so now we've got our lobster clasp on our ribbon, and what we want to do now is attach that to our curb chain. So to do that, we're just going to tie it on, super easy. I'm going to lay that down, feed one side of my ribbon through the last link of the curb chain, and slide it down like this. I want to make sure that I don't move my lobster clasp too much. And I'm just going to tie a simple knot. And that's just going to hold that lobster clasp at the end, hold it in place while we're working, because we're going to be weaving with this ribbon and we don't want it moving around. It's funny, we usually put the clasp on at the end of a project, and with this bracelet you start by tying it on at the beginning. So now our lobster clasp and jump ring are attached to that last link in our curb chain, and we're ready to start weaving. And what we're going to be doing is weaving the ribbon down one side of the curb chain and attaching our charms, and then we'll add the ribbon to the other side with the other color. So to get started weaving, take one side of the ribbon and you're going to hold it straight down against the curb chain like that. And I'm just kind of holding the lobster clasp with between my fingers so that I've got this curb chain kind of pulled taut. Otherwise the curb chain will bend around and loop around, and you want the curb chain laying the way it's designed. Otherwise the ribbon won't end up on the right side if it starts to flip. So make sure throughout the project that your curb chain is laying flat. So I'm going to hold that ribbon side up against the curb chain, and with the other end of the ribbon I'm going to start weaving. And we're calling it weaving. I don't know that it's actually weaving, but you're essentially going to feed the ribbon up through the first length of the curb chain and pull it straight like that, pull it through, and make sure that the ribbon doesn't flip over or fold. You want it to be nice and flat so that it looks nice when you're done and not all twisted up. So you just keep pulling it through like that. And I'm sort of pulling it tight as I go, but it might re-loosen. Periodically you'll want to pull it tight. We're going to keep weaving like this till we get to about the halfway point, and then we'll put on our charms. We chose curb chain for this project because it has nice big openings. Each link is large enough that we can fit these 2 ribbons through. And curb chain also lays flat, which is nice. Then you know you're on the right side of the curb chain while you're working. Now each time I come around to feed the ribbon through the curb chain, I'm making sure that I'm catching that straight ribbon in the little loop I'm making. And what that's going to do is create a nice sort of stripe down the side. We're getting close to the center here of our bracelet. What I'm going to do is lay this down. I'm going to hold the ribbon tight here And I want to lay it down and see if I'm at the halfway point yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the curb chain in half to kind of see where my center is. And I'm getting pretty close to the center. It looks like the center is here. So it might be time to add our first charm. We want our first charm to be about 2 links away from the center. So what I'm going to do is add my first charm now. This is the ribbon that came through the curb chain. I'm going to drape it over my hand so it's out of the way. And this is the ribbon that's along the side of the curb chain. That's the one that I want to add my charms to. So what I'm going to do is feed on my first charm, and I want my charms to be face up. So this is a little bit tricky, but when you're feeding on, when you're feeding your charm on the ribbon, make sure that your charm ends up face up. If it's not face up the first time, just take it back off and feed it on again. And actually I'm going to give myself a sharper little angled end here because it's not going through that jump ring very well. That's going to help have a nice little fine end that can go through the jump ring. So I'm sliding my charm up so it's next to this link in the curb chain. This is that ribbon that's going along the side, and this is the one that's going through the curb chain. So I'm going to just continue catching that outer ribbon with this loop of the inner ribbon and feeding it through my curb chain. And that's going to hold that charm in place. And now what I want to do is go through 2 of my curb chain links, like that. And now I want to add on my anchor charm. So to do that, again, I want this face up because it's two-sided. Slide it down, and it's going to sit right next to that link in the curb chain, like that. And the trickiest part is that the curb chain will want to flip. So make sure it doesn't flip on you because you want all of those wraps to be on the same side of the curb chain because you're going to have the other color running down the other side. So there you can see the charm is up there next to that link, and I'm just going to continue wrapping, and that's going to hold the anchor charm in place. And I'll go 2 more times. 2 more links here, 1 and 2. And what I'm going to do now is add on the other rhinestone charm. So there's my other charm. And now I can just continue weaving, but first I want to make sure that my curb chain isn't flipping. See, it was starting to flip on me. We want to keep it so that all the links are laying in the same direction. And then I'm going to weave until I reach the end. And now I'll just go through the last link in the chain. And then I'm going to tie a knot down here. That's just a little temporary knot because we're going to come back and tie the ends together at the end. So I'm going to just do a temporary knot, not super tight because we want to be able to untie it. Then I'm going to show you how to add our ribbon to the other side. Now that we have our cobalt ribbon on one side with our charms, what we want to do is weave the turquoise ribbon down the other side. To do that, I'm going to flip over the bracelet, and I want to tie the turquoise ribbon to the end just like we did before, going through that jump ring and that first link in our curb chain. So what I'm going to do is feed the ribbon through the jump ring. It's a little tricky because the other ribbon is in there, so the hole isn't as big. There we go. So I'm going to pull that through the jump ring, and I'm going to feed it through the curb chain, that very first link. And if I can find the end, pull it through. And then I want to pull it to about the halfway point of my ribbon. And now all I need to do is tie a knot just like we did before, like that. And then I want to make sure that those are kind of lined up next to each other there, just like that. Perfect. And now we're going to do exactly what we did on the other side, only this time we don't have to add on our charms, so it should go a little bit faster. I'm going to take this ribbon, and I'm going to hold it straight down one side of the curb chain, take the other end of my ribbon, and I'm going to start weaving through the curb chain. And every time I go around the outer ribbon, I'm going to make sure I get it in my loop here before I go through my curb chain. And again, I'm also holding the curb chain nice and taut so that it's not rotating, although now you can see that you're on the right side because there's no ribbon there, so you know you're on the right side. But it definitely helps make it go a little faster if you hold it taut. And I'm just going to keep weaving just like this till I reach the end, and then I'll show you how we're going to finish the end. So now that we're at the end, I don't need to tie a temporary knot on this side. Instead, I'm going to hold that ribbon in place and untie my other temporary knot over here with my other ribbon. And then I'm going to take all 4 ribbons together and I'm going to tie an overhand knot. So I want to make sure I've got all 4 ribbons, and I've got 2 different lengths of ribbons here, so it's a little bit tricky, but just do it slowly and make sure you get all 4 ribbons, like that. And now I want the knot pretty close to my last link in my curb chain, so I'm going to kind of scoot it up so that it's close. And then I'm going to pull each ribbon tight while I'm holding on to the knot, because these satin ribbons are a little bit slippery, so not all of them have gotten a nice tight little knot there. So there's our little knot. And now what we want to do is trim our ends. We want to leave a little bit of a tassel end because we think that's pretty cute. So I'm going to cut all 4, but instead of cutting all 4 straight across, I'm going to do each one individually at an angle, and that's just going to give it a little more movement. So they're not all going to be exactly the same length, but they're going to be close, like that. And now all we have to do is clasp our lobster clasp right through that last link in the curb chain. And there is our beautiful woven chain anchor bracelet.